I would like to call the July 26, 2023 City Council regular meeting to order. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Carey,
Here.
Mr. Chilson,
Present.
Ms. Hutchings. Here. Mr. Nelson,
Present.
Ms. Parker. Present. Ms. Wackler. Present. You have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Mr. Carey.
I move we approve the agenda, the consent agenda as presented to us.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to, will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
July 12th, 2023 council meeting minutes. New business. Ordinance 2023-025 enacting Soldotna Municipal Code 1.04.100 revisor of ordinances to provide for revisions of the ordinances for technical, style, grammar, and reference corrections by the city clerk. Sponsored by the city clerk, public hearing on August 23rd. Ordinance 2023-026, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $3,800 in the general fund for a donation received from the Soldotna Library Friends. Sponsored by the city manager, public hearing on August 23rd. Resolution 2023-049, opposing Kenai Peninsula Borough Resolution 2023-048, placing an advisory question on the ballot at the next regular election to be held October 3rd, 2023, asking whether the Kenai Peninsula Borough should change its regular election date, sponsored by the mayor and Ms. Parker. Resolution 2023-050, authorizing the city manager to execute a sole source professional service contract in an amount of $129,724 with CRW Engineering Group for design and construction management of the rehabilitation of the wastewater treatment outfall, sponsored by the city manager. Resolution 2023-051, commending the City of Soldotna Utilities Department for achieving Ursa major status in water system excellence for 2022, sponsored by the mayor. Resolution 2023-052, reallocating funds for investment purposes amongst the short-term, medium-term, and long-term accounts, sponsored by the city manager. Resolution 2023-053, authorizing the purchase of a Bobcat Model UW56 Toolcat for the utility department in the amount of $89,341, sponsored by the city manager. Action Memorandum 2023-017, canceling the November 29th, 2023 and December 27th, 2023 regular city council meetings, sponsored by the mayor. Action Memorandum 2023-018, authorizing the purchase of sodium carbonate wastewater treatment chemical for $21,120 from Cascade Columbia Distribution Company, sponsored by the city manager. Action Memorandum 2023-019, authorize the purchase of Aqua Mag water treatment chemical for $49,658.40 from Brentag Pacific Incorporated, sponsored by the city manager. That is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments, on any of the items just read by the clerk? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the chamber wishing to speak on any item just read by the city clerk? Seeing none, we'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved by unanimous consent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is presentation with prior notice, and that will be swearing in of the new police officer, Joe Eshon. So they can hear me for a change. Okay, repeat after me and then state your full name. I
I, Joseph Eshon,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold and defend
to uphold and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Alaska,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Alaska,
and the charter and ordinances
and the charter and ordinances
of the city of Soldotna,
of the city of Soldotna,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially perform
and impartially perform
and discharge my duties
and discharge my duties
as police officer to the
As-
best of my ability.
as police officer to the best of my ability.
I take this oath freely without reservation
I take this oath freely without reservation
and promise to act
and promise to act
at all times in accordance
at all times in accordance
with law enforcement code of ethics.
with the law enforcement code of ethics.
Furthermore,
Furthermore,
I recognize the badge of my office
I recognize the badge of my office
as a symbol of public faith,
as a symbol of public faith,
and I will honor and protect
and I will honor and protect
the public trust
the public trust
in serving the community
in serving the community
and fulfilling my fundamental
and fulfilling my fundamental
law enforcement duties.
law enforcement duties.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And I just need you to sign there. And as usual, I forgot to tell you to raise your right hand.
Do it again.
No, that's all right. Once is enough. Thank you very much and congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We're looking forward for a long tenure. Okay, we'll move down to the next item on the agenda, item number 5, public comments and presentations. Items other than those appearing on the agenda, 3 minutes per speaker and 20 minutes aggregate. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Anyone here in the chambers wishing to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move over to Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. So we'll move on to the next agenda item. And that will be number 6, Assembly and Legislative Report. Are there any representatives from the borough or the state and intents who would like to speak? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. I see no one from the borough or the state legislature here. And looking at Zoom, I see no hands raised. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, number 7, administrative reports. I see none. Number 8, public hearings, testimony limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Ordinance 2023-022, approving the fiscal year 2023 capital budget and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $105,000 in the general fund and $105,000 in the small capital projects fund, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Ms. Hutchings.
I'll make a motion to enact ordinance 2023-022, approving the fiscal year of 2023 capital budget and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $105,000 in the general fund and $105,000 in the small capital projects fund, presented by the city manager.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to the Public Works Director.
Thank you. This ordinance appropriates the funding for our FY24 capital budget. It was the topic of our work session on June 28th. It is a significantly smaller capital budget than we've seen in years past. Specifically, we've got 4 funded projects on there. I'll go through them real quick as a reminder. The first one is the Riverfront redevelopment project. This is supplemental funding for that ongoing project. This would enable us to continue and complete a MAI appraisal of the catalyst site, as well as provide materials and supplies for the additional upcoming public meetings. The next one is the police body worn camera replacements. Chief's here to probably talk about any specifics, but we were a leader in the state in implementing body worn cameras, and they are now antiquated and no longer supported to the degree that we need them to. This would enable us to implement the purchase of those new body worn cameras as well as the connectivity through FirstNet. The next one is the refrigeration at the ice arena. This would fund a mechanical engineering study to identify the replacement of our refrigeration system. It's going on 33 years. The R22 Freon is no longer legal to produce or import into the United States. We do have an ample supply, but it's time to pre-plan and come up with solutions and alternatives to the refrigeration system at the ice rink so that we can eventually replace that system. And then the final one is kind of a annual appropriation. It's $15,000 for the ongoing storefront improvement program. This funding would enable at least 2 additional projects in the upcoming year to be funded. That completes my report.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on the ordinance 2023-022? Seeing none, I'll look at Zoom and I see no hands raised in Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak on this item, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Wackler,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Hutchings.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes. Excuse me, 6.
Ordinance 2023-022 passed on a 6-0 count. Moving on to the next item, ordinance 2023-023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $129,724 in the utility fund and the utility system capital improvements fund for the wastewater treatment plant outfall rehabilitation design services project, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Mr. Nelson,
Motion to enact ordinance 2023-023.
second,
Second.
please.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to the utility manager for an update on this.
Good evening. It was found that the current outfall was failing coming out of the wastewater treatment plant, and this will provide design and construction management from CRW Engineering Service.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the chamber wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-024? Excuse me, 2023-023. Seeing none, it's back before the council. Mr. Carey.
Thank you. When I hear the word failing, had it reached the expected life expectancy, or was there some other issue which led to the failure?
It's collapsed. The piping is collapsed. So it has failed beyond expectant useful life.
Was it damaged? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be unduly dense. I'm gonna assume it wasn't expected to collapse.
It's corrugated metal pipe, and it is rusted through, and it is just
Okay,
collapsed in on
Thank-
itself.
that's helpful.
Well,
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Can you tell us, Michael, based on this failure, have we had any problems meeting the discharge requirements of our permit?
We have not. We've made some modifications so we can continue to discharge to the river, but we have not had any failures meeting the permit requirements.
Mr. Mayor, add also, and that we have been in contact with DC. DC is very aware of what is going on and has come out and worked with us as well. So we are meeting, as he stated, we're meeting our requirements, and CRW will help us with the next steps of what we need to do to fix the issue.
Any other council comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Carey,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Wackler.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
Ordinance 2023-023 passes on a 6-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-024, amending Soldotna Municipal Code, section 2.28.250, retirement benefits, authorizing the city manager to develop and institute the deferred compensation employee benefit program from the recruitment and retention strategies. City managers, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Ms. Hutchings.
I make a motion to enact ordinance 2023-024, amending Soldotna Municipal Code, section 2.28.250, retirement benefits, authorizing the city manager to develop and institute the deferred compensation employee benefit program from the recruitment and retention strategies presented by the city manager.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the title stated, this continues the work that was you had previously authorized from the recruitment and retention strategies, the work session that was held on February 8th. There was an ordinance before you that authorized the city manager to move forward with policies regarding recruitment and retention, and those have been moved forward. The alternate work schedule policy, employee bonus referral program, employee sabbatical policy, flex and administrative leave bank for exempt employees policy, hiring bonus policy, paid parental leave program, and relocation reimbursement expenses policy. The last remaining policy that you and or program that you spoke of is the deferred comp employee benefit program. So this ordinance then authorizes the city manager to move forward for development of the program. There's a very, draft outline of what the program will look like. I did want to include that for your knowledge. And if approved tonight, then I'll work with Workplace Solutions, Mila Cosgrove, to develop the program. And then another ordinance will come before you to appropriate the funds for the program. Also, Jessica, the HR director, and I will work with Mission Square to put the 401A and into place, and most likely we will implement on January 1st because all of it will take time for implementation.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on ordinance 2023-024? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. And just one other comment, I forgot to mention it under ordinance 2023-023. There were no hands raised for Zoom on that one either. So having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Nelson,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Wackler,
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
Ordinance 2023-024 passes on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to the next agenda item is number 9, new business, and all those items under new business were on the consent agenda. So we will now move on to mayor and council reports.
I need you to read the commending resolution to these gentlemen.
Okay.
I will go grab it really quick off of the printer.
And let me find it here.
It's 051.
051.
Should be on page 44.
Just as I get to it on this. Okay, resolution 23. 2023-051, a resolution commending the city of Soldotna Utilities Department for achieving Ursa major status in water system excellence for 2022. Whereas the Water System Excellence Award is coordinated effort between Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation Drinking Water Program and the Operator Certification Program to recognize exceptional performance. And whereas operators are required to take and operate under this oath to the best of my ability, I will strive to provide good service, protect and preserve public health, public property, and the environment by correctly operating water supply and wastewater system equipment, properly completing required reports, adhering to relevant state and federal regulations, continuing my education in the field, and working with my utility managers to establish clear operating policies for the facilities I operate. And whereas our operators have clearly demonstrated their commitment to the oath by achieving the Ursa major status, maintaining 4 quarters of operator certification, compliance by having no open, unresolved, or incurred drinking water violations during 2022. And whereas our operators, Rob Hayes, lead operator, John Burton, operator 2, John Essert, operator number 1, Caleb Sleppy, operator number 1, Spencer Ike, operator 1, and Department Director Michael Allen have provided excellent service to our community, protected and preserved public health, and adhered to all established requirements. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Soldotna, Alaska, that the Soldotna City Council commends the Utilities Department for achieving Ursa major status and for their dedication to the health and safety of our community. Section 2, this resolution is effective immediately upon adopted by the City Council this 26th day of July, 2023. And thank you, gentlemen, for your fine work. We all appreciate that, all the City Council and everyone in this city who receives our water and attached to our wastewater system. So thank you again. And we look to see probably another half a dozen, 10, 12, 20 years more of this. Thank you all. Okay, now we'll move on to the next agenda item, unless I've missed something again.
No, it's just you, whatever you have.
Item number 10 is mayor and council reports. Mayor's report and proclamation. Mayor and council members Carey, Hutchings, Nelson, Parker, and Wackler will be attending the Alaska Municipal League Summer Legislative Conference in Homer, Alaska, August 8th to the 11th. Candidate filing period opens on August 1st and closes on August 15th at 4:30 p.m. And for everyone's edification, I will be filing for re-election for the position of mayor. Figure one more term, and maybe I'll try retirement again, see if it works. And the next item is mini grants fiscal year 24. Cycle 1 application period closes on August the 15th, and I believe we'll have a work session or a special session to go over those applications.
Yeah.
Thank you. Some other comments I had. Saturday was Progress Days, and it was an absolutely beautiful day for our barbecue, hot dog barbecue. I want to thank the great Soldotna City employees that made it such a fun day. We could not have asked for a nicer day. It was absolutely gorgeous out there. I'd like to thank Johnny Blankenship and Justin DeBoyle of the clerk's office who organized the barbecue. Justin is now the premier hot dog barbecuer in the state and will probably have his own cooking channel show here before too long. Also the Parks and Rec crew in Soldotna Creek Park who set up and cleaned up after us. They did a fantastic job. They were always available when needed. Justin O'Regan, who is now the city official hot dog inspector. She inspected every hot dog going up to the counter after making sure it was properly heated. Kim McMillan from the library is our beverage dispenser expert. She just kept the Coca-Cola and other drinks just flowing left and right. Laura Ross, our hot dog on-rapper, who always kept us fully supplied with hot dogs as we slaved over the hot grills, and it was quite a job. And then, of course, we had City Manager Jeanette Bauer, who supervised the server crew of council members Linda Hutchings, Dan Nelson, Lisa Parka, and Cheryl Wackler. And she kept them on their toes and made sure they didn't slack off. She was a regular
Manager.
next, yeah, she very well supervised. Next to the barbecue tables, Laura Reimer, the assistant to the city manager, organized the tree sapling table in which she gathered a crew of volunteers to distribute approximately 800 white spruce saplings to the public in attendance. She not only found the saplings for us, which is somewhat of an unusual job around here, but she managed the distribution of them. And a special thanks to Toby Odom of Coca-Cola for providing their trailer for dispensing free drinks to those participating in the hot dog barbecue. The line started right at 12 noon. We were a little bit behind in getting them all, getting the hot dogs ready. But that line was steady from noon until about 2:15 when we finally ran out of hot dogs. So we served about 800 hot dogs. We had a few items left over, but it was, like I said, it was a great day. I think everyone had a great time, had a lot of fun, and I'm pretty sure everyone who was there enjoyed having those nice, juicy hot dogs. And even some of the dog-eat hot dogs. We had a few of those because somebody who I won't mention has a habit of dropping them off the thing. Okay, on Sunday, which was the second day or maybe the third day there in the park, I was pleased to be able to work with the Soldotna Elks Lodge and distribute 1,000 tickets to kids in the park to be able to play on the inflatable action games. We provided the Elks provided 2 tickets to each child so they could take 2 of the rides or 2 of the games, and there was a lot of happy faces and a lot of jumping for joy when they got those tickets. We passed those tickets out starting at 11 o'clock in the morning and continued on to about a little bit after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So about 500 kids got free rides or free plays. And that, I think, was all I had. I thought of something before I came here, and as usual, I forgot to write it down. So we will move on to the next agenda item, which will be item number 11, the city manager report.
Mr. Carey went to the library.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Carey went to the library board meeting.
Oh, did I miss that somewhere? Oh, I did. Council reports, Library Advisory Board meeting, Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On July 17th, the Library Board, Advisory Board met. And always, it is a real privilege to get to listen to what's going on in our library, to listen to all those that are on the board, to listen to the number of programs. One of the things that they are in the process of looking at is actually having an exchange program in laundromats. So you bring a book and you take a book. And so again, just another way of extending. There are just so many different ideas. I love graphs, and the librarian, Ms. Nash, is very good in terms of making them. If you look at the graphs, every single month in every different division is the highest month they've had, relatively speaking. We have, the library has from 6,500 people visiting the library in January to once we get to February, it's 7,000 through every month after then. Visitors, the computer use is wonderful, room use. It is a real gem for our city, what goes on in that library, and it provides service. Obviously, when you talk about 7,000 people, it's much more than simply the residents of Soldotna. It is, again, that larger community and all the tourists. And so it's just a privilege to get to be on the library board as part of ex officio, as a member of the council. And again, they're just doing a great job.
Any questions for Mr. Carey? Seeing none, we'll move now to item 11, the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've asked Kyle to give provide an update of some DOT activities, contact, and also Fieldhouse.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll touch on a few items associated with the State Department of Transportation. A meeting or two ago, Vice Mayor Parker commented on the east side of town, going out of town towards Sterling, and the passing lanes and the opportunity whether or not to have double yellow, no passing zones. Been in communication with DOT on that. There's design criteria for establishing that and making those changes, but they recognize that there is opportunity to address ongoing issues if they're there, and we do know that it's a safety corridor, so there are issues there. They did comment that it is certainly something that should be and will be looked at in the Sterling Highway Safety Corridor project. That's the one that's been going on for a while, and I'll give you a brief update on that next. But those discussions are ongoing with DOT, whether or not that's something that can be implemented near term or as associated with that safety corridor project. And the timing of that project really is what's going to dictate what may or may not happen up there. So the project manager for the safety corridor project noted that it has switched from a design build project delivery method to a progressive design build. That extended kind of the administrative effort, but they do expect to have a contractor on board by the end of this year, which means that it is possible that that certain segments could be in construction next year, but that'll be wholly dependent on the contractor and the phasing that they provide to DOT and get approved. So it's most likely, in my opinion, that work will occur in 2025, and that's the area going out of town. And the city and the borough will certainly be participants in the design phase as we look at what improvements are being made up there. Something that's been kicked around for quite a few years, and there's several alternatives that have been discussed and have pros and cons as far as turning movements and things of that nature. So we'll stay abreast of that. The STIP came out this month. That's the Statewide Transportation Improvement Plan. It's the document that's required by any state that receives buku federal dollars. Included this year is some local priorities. They note them as illustrative projects, noting that there's no federal funding source identified or secured at this time, but it is an opportunity for local agencies to add their transportation projects to this statewide transportation improvement plan that should hopefully assist us with grant applications as we seek these various infrastructure investment and jobs act and other opportunities. Not only is it on our 5-year CIP and other planning documents, but it's on this statewide transportation improvement plan as well. We chose to include our 3 largest transportation projects. Those are South Fireweed construction, the K Beach and Arena Avenue signalization, and then also reconstruction of Marydale, which is on our 5-year CIP. Finally, on the STIP, a couple other notable projects in our area. The Kenai Spur Highway reconstruction is planned for next year. I think that's about a $48 million project. That's the second phase of the expansion that we saw from Swires to about Robin. This would be the Sport Lake to Robin segment. So that should be going down next year. And then finally, just a kind of a quick note that many of us in my profession kind of smirked at is the email from DOT regarding the Cooper Landing bypass, which is probably not the PC name for that project anymore, but we all know it as that, and the cost escalation associated with that project, it is nearly a $900 million project at this point, and it started out in the 300 million range. So nobody is immune to the, cost escalation that we're seeing across construction project in the state and the nation. So, and then last note on the field house, it is out for bid on the street right now. So firms are taking a look at the plans and specifications. We have a pre-bid conference on August 8th, and the bids are due on August 29th. So that will be Christmas Day. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on any portions of that report or anything else.
Mr. Carey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the field house, Is it divided into different subcategories, or is it all one seeking single bids with subcontract?
Thank you, Councilmember Carey. It is one single bid for one entity, one general contractor that would then have subcontractors underneath them. We do have two additive alternates, but it'll be one general contractor that will be bidding it.
Thank you.
Any, Vice Mayor Parker?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Kyle, the pre-bid conference on the 8th, is that a mandatory pre-bid conference?
Vice Mayor Parker, it is not mandatory. It is strongly encouraged. And that is purposely done. We don't want to artificially cut off the marketplace by only those who attend that pre-bid meeting. So to avoid any gamesmanship or bidding advantage for only those who attend that meeting, we would rather have anybody who is qualified, responsive and responsible bid on the project, maximize our participants.
Any other questions? I do have one quick one. I may have missed it, but did you mention anything about Homestead? What the status is there?
I didn't. Unfortunately, thank you, Mayor. We don't have a status update from DOT. We were fortunate to have our CTP grant project elevated to the project evaluation board through DOT. And it was scheduled for an evaluation against the other promoted projects a couple months ago, and it got postponed to July. And then to my knowledge, they haven't set a date yet. So we're still waiting with bated breath to see if that project scores high enough to be awarded funding.
Okay, so it's still in the running.
Still in the running.
Anything else to add to the city manager's report? Okay, moving on to the next agenda item is number 12, public comments. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Well, there's no one in the audience, so there's no one from here wishing to speak. And there are no hands raised on Zoom. So we will move on to the next one. Council comments. And this evening we'll start with Ms. Wackler.
I don't have any comments today.
Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I do want to clarify that I didn't show up to help at the park until 2:30 and everything was gone. Usually, we go till 4 o'clock and then there's cleanup, and it was done. So it must have been a great turnout, and you guys, I can't believe 800 people went through the line in 2 hours. That's pretty amazing. But I am happy that we had a wonderful, wonderful day, and it seems like we'll have it for another day or so, and then we'll be back to rain. So everybody enjoy the music in the park tonight.
Mr. Nelson.
Well, I learned this weekend that the hot dog process is a little bit more complex than you might think. There's a lot of moving parts that you got to get right. So thank everybody that came out there. I do want to recognize the Parks and Rec staff, as you mentioned, Mayor, for helping us out and doing all those things. And also, of course, just the things they do at those large events and keeping up with trash and all of that. And made me notice this week, as I've been going through town, we've had folks breaking down on Monday the signage and those things, and street sweepers, and of course people watering flowers. And it's just amazing how many people it takes to just keep things looking nice. So thank you to the staff that do all of that, and to everyone here at the city, and of course the water treatment plant folks, as we talked about tonight. I did just want to mention I attended a meeting of the committee for the storefront improvement program, and we just allocated additional funds in our capital budget for that. And there was only one applicant who we suggested needed to revise their proposal, but the discussion quickly turned to all of the projects historically and how that's really changed the landscape. And I think we'll probably have some information from the planning department coming on that in a summary here soon. But it's when you start looking at everything that program has done, it really makes tremendous difference that maybe you don't notice if you just see incremental changes. So a great program, and thank the planning and zoning department staff and everybody who works on that as well.
Mr. Carey.
The parade was excellent and I appreciate the weather and I know it's going to extend for the rest of the summer.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Yes, we had a great time at Soldotna Creek Park. Because I was there to help out early. Unfortunately, I did not get to see the parade, so maybe next year we might want to look at, so we can see the parade, maybe do the picnic the next day, like we've done in years past, and do it on Sunday like we've done in years past. So I'm glad that everybody in the area enjoyed coming, getting sodas and hot dogs and chips. And I had a very sore back after that.
Last but not least, Mr. Choson.
I won't keep you here, so no comments.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, executive session. There is no need for one tonight. Last one is meeting and announcements. August 2nd, 2023, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 5:30 PM. August 23rd, 2023, Riverfront redevelopment work session at 4:30 PM. And August 23rd, 2023, City Council meeting at 6 PM. Seeing no further items on the agenda, we are adjourned.